recording. Apologies for the delay there. Welcome to today's webinar, which gives you an introduction to NUS and how to get involved and shape our work. As I said, later on will be a chance for you to ask some questions to Vinson, the Vice President for Further Education. I want to say hello to each other in the chat area. If you've got any questions, please direct them to myself in that area, and I'll try and answer as many as I can to the end. So, I don't want to give you a full history lesson. I've only got kind of half an hour with myself. But 92 years ago, World War I, as part of a general desire for peace across Europe, obviously we've developed our event, and we're to a point where now we are a confederation of approximately 600 students' unions working across England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland. Of those colleges, around 400 of those 600 youths, rather, 400 of them come from FE or general further education colleges, sixth forms, independent specialist colleges, and training and different training providers in the FE sector. Around 95% of unions, councils, associations, parliaments, guilds right across the United Kingdom. It means it represents approximately 7 million students across the UK. The membership is really exciting, is also continuing to grow, and as a member of staff working for NUS, we get more and more requests and questions about how the side of that 95% can get involved, which is really exciting. Our voice and the size of our voice is only going to get bigger, stronger, and look harder to represent the views of all the students across the UK and give them a chance to share their views. For example, we set up the National Society of Apprentices in February this year. The society has its own elected leadership team and works with NUS officers to make sure that apprentices have a place within NUS where they can share their views. And this is something that we try and do with all members, and we hope that you individuals and your students in your colleges get the chance to feed. There's a certain way that we do that. So NUS is divided into a few zones. We have 5 zones in NUS, and I can go through those for you now. So Pierce is the lead full-time officer for NUS, leads our campaign work, and then, as I said, is broken down into these other zones. 5 zones, which are higher education, union development, and society and citizenship, and have its own within their zone the key pieces of work they work on, as well as a committee that works to organise the work there. So Megan is the Vice President for Higher Education, and her campaign area works to improve teaching learning quality, for example, in higher education. And obviously, Giles, our Vice President for Further Education, he things learning within further education. So a big piece of work that Joe and the FE team have been working on recently has been reforms to A levels, which is something we will come on to later on. All information is also available on NUS Connect. So if you haven't yet registered on NUS Connect, I advise you to do so. It's a really good place for you to learn about the work that we're doing, keep up to date on with the campaigns that we're doing, feed in your own ideas. There are work that we've been working on recently and that we'll be working on going forward. So obviously the general election in 2015 is a huge thing that we're all working on at the moment. Around FE, we've been working on doing IAG, trying to save the AS level and reversing the reforms to levels. We've done research consultations and different things to try and find out how reforms are affecting them and what they would like to see changed. A lot of research and consultation that's going to be going on over the next few months to understand the future of our movement, and that's something that's been led by the Union Development Zone around looking at what our movement will look like in the next 20 years. We have a program. There's been lots of done also by Column and the look at the report, which was student housing. And then we have a specific FE campus cohesion interfaith project that's also running. So there's lots of diverse portfolio of work that all of these zones work across. Try and create that you can all get involved with that. We also have specific campaigns and sections. So we have our liberation campaigns area, a women's campaign, a black students campaign, a disabled students campaign, and a D campaign. Campaigns obviously have their own office who is elected, and also have their own committees. Kind of caveats is that to be involved in specific campaigns, you need to self-define. For example, you can only be the women's officer if you are a woman, and you can only be disabled students officer if you are or self-defined as disabled, for example. And there's a lot more information on all of this on West Connect if you wanted to find more about their specific campaigns. In addition, sections which support and represent the work of international students, mature students, postgraduate students, and part-time students. So you can see how to represent a broad range of student issues, entire membership. In touch with NUS, and keeping in touch is something that we ask you to do. It has a lot of things that we go and do, and lots of work that we try to achieve. Well, and we need to know how you and your students want us to achieve the goal that we set out. So there are lots of different ways that we would ask you to keep in touch. The emailing is the easy. We would always say that if you want to ask questions, then feel free to email your student officers who work for NUS. So these slides will be available on NUS Connect, and you can look at how to keep involved. Obviously, there's the email Connect, as I've mentioned. There's Twitter. We use a lot of tweeting to try and keep you all up to date, and there's two different accounts there, the @NUS UK and @NUS Connect. Search for the National Union of Students if you don't already follow us. For NUS, we also produce a monthly newsletter which is called the Doc. This is a newsletter that goes out on our contact networks through our database, and is kind of showcase the work that different unions are doing. So we'll use it to update on the different work NUS are doing specifically, as well as events are coming up. But if you're doing something on your campus that you think is really exciting, you want to tell other unions about, and showcase what you're doing, then let us know, because it might be that we can put it in the dialogue, and Greg doing something in Shetland College, which is really, really exciting and would be relevant to someone in Oldham or to Rachel in Gateshead. So it's important that you keep in touch, let us know what you're doing, and we can share that information as well. There are, I'm hoping that the people are linked already. These are email networks that allow you to share ideas and answer the questions, and to keep in touch, and they're free networks, so that's always a bonus. Our own conference and national conference are the democratic events it has that allow you to feed into the work that we do, and allow students to shape what we do. These are a little bit more detail for you. So we've got some, and I would always say that obviously, as well as contacting your officers directly, coming to our events is one of the key ways in which you can all keep involved in the work we're doing, and also shaping the work that we do going forward. So our own conference, 3rd and 4th of November, that's going to be Harrogate. For that is today. So if you haven't registered, you still have time to do so. You can register through NUS Connect. Conference is it's an event that gives you the chance to discuss key issues that students are facing. Discussions allow us to come as a movement, and to ensure that we have a space to agree collective thoughts, and to take ownership of some solutions that we come up with as a group. The event, I always think, starts the road to national conference. We'll have the initial discussions here and then move forward to April. zone I mentioned earlier has key themes, and within those themes we'll be examining and debating the issues that come up. The for officers, for staff members as well. And if you aren't registered, that you'll still find time to get registered for those events coming up. So significant discussions ranging from improving the governance of our institutions, the quality of student housing, to how communities of students and communities in which we exist. They're really positive events with really positive outcomes, and especially for new officers, some of those who are registered today and new staff members. It's always a chance to meet other officers from across the country, and I think that networking is really important if you share your ideas and what is going on perhaps in Gateshead, similar to what's going on in Milton Keynes or in Shetland. It's always a real eye opener, I think. Leaders training, which is the end of November. That's my favourite 2 days at work. It's a brilliant event that we put on. It helps student officers to gain skills and knowledge and confidence to be effective in their role as a student leader. The core line to take officers on a journey that will help them reflect on their responsibilities, understanding of leadership, to working collectively on a local and national scale, as well as understanding how to influence policy to drive a quality improvement in teaching and learning. Like community organising, public speaking. It's a whole range of different skills that we try to help give student officers. Again, there's more information. I think the information launched for this yesterday, so you'll get registered. This event is going to be hosted in Midlands, so for those of you who are from the south, not too far away. We give you the chance to find out more about our priority campaigns in the FE zone, to explore some of our projects and initiatives to enhance and improve the impact of learner voice in your organisation. Space to with different officers and staff. It's a free event as well, so what we normally find is that staff member will generally come along with new officers from their union, and it also gives the staff who are dance to have discussion as well, which is always useful. Such as this coming up in December, which will specifically focus on funding and income for FE unions. Obviously, we tell you to go out and sell your NUS extra cards, and that's something that you should certainly be doing because it raises money for you if you do it right. Colleague Eugene will be delivering a webinar on how you can increase that funding, the income your unions make, which you can go out and spend on campaigns and your activities going forward. A national conference in April, primary democratic event of the year. It's an event where these issues and changes that we discuss throughout the year come to a head, by reps from all over the UK. We just 1,000 to 1,200 different student officers attending, which is a brilliant event. Discussions happen, and then motions, and we end up with a policy that we work to for the year ahead. It'll also be a chance for student officers to elect their new full-time officer leadership team. So we'll be electing new presidents and new presidents at national conference. It'll be those people who then have the responsibility to take the new policy to try and help make the changes that you want to see. So that's a stop shop on how work at the moment. If nobody has asked any questions, maybe that's because I've gone too fast, or maybe it's because I've answered them all already. So I don't know whether Joe is still. I'm hoping he is. If he is, I unmute Joe. Are you there, Joe?
Hello.
I think I will keep monitoring questions as they come through, Joe, if that's okay. And I can direct them to you. But what I think would be a good idea is if you want to kind of recap anything that you think I might have missed from an officer point of view. I've done that very much from a staff member point of view.
Yeah.
If there's things that you think I've missed or things you want to elaborate on first of all, then feel free.
Okay. It's useful to give you a bit of background on what I'm involved in NUS and kind of how I got involved. So, in the student movement, by joining my students' union at Cornwall College. So when I became a student, A levels there, I was already quite political, quite in politics outside of the student movement, but also quite things like EA being cut and that kind of stuff. So I was a part-time officer in my students' union for a while there, and then became sabbatical officer, so president of Cornwall College, and then decided to run for NUS. Now that all sounds like it was really quick, but it actually a period of 3 years. And I wanted to get involved in NUS because I was really interested in how students across the country could get together and organise on a national level and can kind of campaign on the issues that are affecting students all over the country, whether that was A or tuition fees or students on board and that kind of stuff. I mean, Dan's kind of break up the different zones in NUS. So my job is to be the Vice President for Further Education. So I'm the FE zone within NUS. So it's my responsibility to head up campaigns like education policy or things around governance in colleges or financial support fees, things like EMA and the Student Bursary Fund, that kind of stuff. So I'm working on some of those things which you might see on NUS Connect if you're already on it, and if you're not, as Dan said, you should get registered. And then about what zones is going to be talking about, so particularly around vocational education, that kind of thing. And yeah, I can list off all the things we're doing. You're better off looking at NUS Connect and kind of picking the bits that are either relevant to you, passionate about, and kind of looking at what's good for your students' union. Talk to you about quickly before we get to the Q&A, where you get to grill me a little bit, is the general election. So the general election is happening in May 2015, so it's about 8 months away, I think. Election hub for students' unions. So you're a staff member, also you can log on and look at kind of the NUS are demanding from politicians for the general election, and you can look at kind of who these are and who your candidates are in your area. Look at how you can lobby them on certain issues, whether it's to do with sport or EMA or funding for college or things around international students and the immigration status, that kind of stuff. So it's different things that can be relevant to you. Sign up for that and have a look at that. On the back of that, we're also doing lots of stuff around registration. So it's really important that actually we get student seats where there are really small majorities for MPs who really need to work hard to cling on to their seats, that we get students registered to vote, make sure that they actually have a general election and get involved in that. So I think we can probably circulate that after this. That's not really we can, which is good. Yeah, but really happy to answer questions. A few of you on here, so probably happy for you to just. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. So if you've got any particular, for me, what NUS is at the moment, or what the FP zone actually does, or any questions around kind of what NUS as an organisation, or how you can get involved and that kind of thing, I can absolutely do some of that stuff. NUS all day long. So if you give me some pointers, that'd be really helpful.
I had before we began, Joe, if that's okay.
Sure.
We have Rachel from Gateshead who's joined us, and she was interested in running for the zone committee, but she was wondering kind of how that works, how it would be elected, and how much time she would have to put into it on top of the other duties she has as a student union officer.
Okay, cool. And thanks for joining the webinar. The zone committees are basically a committee of people who sit scrutinise the work of the vice president in that zone. So you can run for any of the zones in each 5 zones. Potentially run for as HE zone if you're a higher education student. So you run for zone committee at zone conferences, which take in October? Are we? And basically, the committee looks at kind of the work what I'm doing, makes sure that we're pointed in the right direction in NUS around what to do in national conferences, acting the policies we've got, and also really usefully for me actually is having a group of people who are active in their own students' unions to make sure they kind of tell me what's going on the ground and how to make sure we're picking up the right stuff, because I'm not doing it anymore. I'm in the national one, but I don't get to know what's going on campus life day to day, so that's really useful for me, the organisation. Zone conferences, a short speech, but it's no scary because it's about a minute. And the people who are attending that zone conference get to vote for you and to how good your speech is. You might get elected to to zone committee. And yeah, it takes place. If I told you everything, it takes place in November. Speech about a minute. Yeah, I think there's probably meetings a year, which are usually in London, but we might move them around a bit. But your travel is always covered for, and your expenses are always covered for. Outside of that, your commitment might be about an hour or two a week, maybe depending on what's going on. So nearer the general election, there might be more things to talk about, and away from there might be less things to talk about. So go up and down, but it's not a commitment, but I think a really good way to get involved in NUS. So when I first started in NUS, actually my first position was on a zone committee, and that was really useful for me because I got to influence of a different zone. And actually, that wasn't even the FE zone; I was in the Southern zone. And kind of FE good stuff is what you're passionate about. You should probably come to and run for that. But if you're interested in developing students' unions, you should maybe consider running for union development. But the good about zone conferences this year is that you can dip in and out of each zone, and on the second day elections take place, they're back, so you can decide to run for one zone or maybe two, be able to do that because the agenda allows you to do that in different ways. So that's sure. You can. I'm not really sure when I'm in full screen. But Rachel, I'm running for FE. Good. Okay. Obviously, I'm biased. So if you want to run for a zone, I would say you should run for FE because it's obviously the best. But yeah, please get involved. I'm glad you're coming, and please do come and see me at zone conference or give me a call if you want to have a chat about anything else.
One thing I didn't mention in the stuff I was going through, which I thought about including, but I wasn't sure on time, around the new deal for the next generation work we're doing more thoroughly. I've been to offices probably like you have. They've been asking about the new deal website.
Yeah.
If you had, maybe.
Yeah. So the new deal website was launched quite recently, and basically on there it talks about a new deal for students in the fiscal process. So it's looking at how students are more involved in the process of politics, not just in Westminster or Parliament, but also with devolved Scotland and Northern Ireland, and also around lobbying your local council for a lot of stuff, because actually a lot of affect students, a lot of the decisions that are made come from local councils, so it's really important that we consider that as well. There are pretty specific asks around what we would like to see students benefit from in the election process in the next few months, and I kind of touched on some of those earlier. So some of those things are around transport, things are on reform, qualified teachers, on a better careers advice service for young people. You can get involved as a student on a one-to-one basis with the website and kind of look at what campaigns are important to you, and you can lobby your students to pick up some of that stuff and make sure they're doing it, but also real things and about how you can get involved in campaigns. So each ask has got a campaign pack associated with it and a briefing which sort of talks about what's the status quo, what would be different, and how you can make that happen. And I think that we've done that because it actually gives students some structure and actually gives you some step-by-step guidance on how you can get involved in up to May, because it can all be a bit confusing and what we think is important. But actually, when I say NUS is students' union, so actually it's what student unions think are important. The website is up, and you can don't know the address because I don't will be circulated by Dan, I'm sure. If not, it hasn't already. Yeah.
Is www.newdxgen.com, but I will double check that and I will forward that out as Joe has said. Questions from anybody?
Okay. Diane T. Monk, do you have any questions? You can put it on the, or you can put no.
In particular, I was just kind of interested in hearing a bit more about what NUS can offer for students. I mean, if there's any other kind of which can be involved in. About those.
I mean, that question's kind of like, what can Oxford Street offer shoppers, because there's so much. But I mean, essentially, you lots of things. So it can be getting your students' union to talk to you about how we can develop your students' union, how to get more support or lobby for more support from the college. We can talk about how we can build relationships with other unions in Europe, so you can campaign together, which sometimes is effective. We can talk about what campaigns nationally and how you can get involved in those. We can point around what staff is leading on what. I mean, NUS has about 200 staff. All have different descriptions and job remits. So there are some people working on environmental work, there are some people working on higher education policy, there are some people working on housing policy. It's a real broad mix, really. I mean, but the best way to look at kind of what we can offer student unions and what we offer to you as an officer is looking at NUS Connect, looking at doing now what we've done in the past, and if you want to tap into any of that. But NUS Connect is quite good because it has all at the moment, but also briefings about things that have come up time and time again. So things around having a sabbatical officer in the right thing to do. How do I lobby for that if I want it, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, lots of that, and you should definitely check that out. Does that answer your question? Great. T-Monk doesn't have T-Monk. What's the name of T-Monk? You've got
Tabitha, who is the new learner voice practitioner at Milton Keynes College, which will be very close to where we're hosting the next FE leadership training.
It will. I know that your students' union is doing a lot of work with candidates there. So I know that you've been doing a lot with Andrew Pakes, I think, who's a Labour candidate, and I know that Tom Beach is quite active in your union. So you do, that's for sure.
Well, I don't. It might be a good time to wrap it up.
Okay.
This will be put onto NUS Connect with all of the others that we're delivering. I can also forward things around if that would be useful to people who are through the journals or through the data contacts that we have. I'll make sure that Joe's email is included in that as well. If you have any questions for Joe, you can contact him directly, or obviously feel free to get in touch with me, and if I think it's something that needs passing to Joe, I will. But it has been useful to some of you, hopefully all of you. And if you need anything else, obviously don't hesitate to ever get in touch with us. Hopefully seeing you at Zone Conference in a few weeks' time. But for now, thank you very much, everybody.
Great.